All right, so here we are in the funnel builder and with the one and only Darren Austin Hall. All right, about to launch Honor All Creation. So in the funnel builder, you've got sections, and then in sections, you've got rows, right? So the section has this green outline box. Then the rows have a blue outline box, like so. And you can see them here: sections, rows, columns, elements. Right. So then the columns go inside the rows. So you've got a row. You might want more than one column inside a row. For example, here. Oh, and the columns are purple, like a soft purple or pink. Right. If I duplicate this one, you see now there's two rows. I can duplicate again. Now there's I'm sorry, columns. Let me get my language right. So you see now this has three columns, whereas this row has one column, a very wide column. This row has three narrow columns, right? So that in essence is kind of the whole premise behind the whole thing, right? So
and what are the elements? Like if I want to add
right,
images.
so now we get into the elements. Once you've got your containers, see the containers is kind of like where you're going to spend most of your time thinking about how you want it, right? Like if you look at this here, you can see that we've got two columns, right? And now inside these columns, here you see there's a row, and then it's got two columns in it. There's the pink boxes, right? And then the orange boxes are the elements, right? So the elements are super easy to add. You just hit this little plus sign here, or if you're starting a section from scratch, let me start a section from scratch, right? Let's say I want to start a section right here. I need to hit this little plus sign here. Oh, by the way, if you get rid of all, well, let's talk about padding for a second before we get into elements. This is where it gets tricky. Sometimes these little hover, finding the box, the thing you want to edit, is tricky if you got rid of all your padding between them. So that'll make more sense in a moment. The way you edit anything is you just click it. So if I want to edit this, I just click it, and there you go. I can now edit it, right? See, I can make that font bigger. I can scroll down here, see what other options I have. I could change the italics, text, color. I could even change font. Select the custom font, right? And it's got all kinds of fonts. You go to Google, it's got a plugin that works with all the Google fonts. All right, so I just changed that font. Right, so yeah, and if I want to edit this section, I just click it. I see the green box, so I can click. Another way to select what you want to edit is by going to up here, sections or rows, right? Let's go to sections. Let's go manage. See, this is another way that I can edit. I can click them here too. There's section 2, section 3, section 4. All right, let me edit section 2. I just clicked it. So now, whoops, section 2. So now what I need to do is come here, and the left sidebar is always going to give you your editing, like anything you can edit. And there's advanced here that has further options. I could do a border on that section if I want. I can make it thicker, right? So here's another thing. Right, so the first principle is the skeleton of it, right, which is sections, rows, columns, elements. The second principle is going to be spacing, right? So why is spacing important? I was saying earlier that if the padding in it is non-existent, I won't be able to get to this little plus sign. It could get a little tricky. So, and that's okay. You can always, if you're having a hard time getting the little menu and the little plus sign is somewhere, you can always go there and hit manage and select them from here. If you get rid of all your padding, some of them are going to be hard to select. I would search for an example, but for the sake of time, I won't. So let's just talk about what padding means. So here I selected the section. It has no padding. That's why there's no space between this green box and this blue box. See that blue box? There's no space at the bottom. Now, if I increase the padding at the bottom of this section, see, now there's a bunch of space there because I just put 33 pixels. I could do even more. I could do 100 pixels. Right now it's easy for me to select this button, but it's not like you need to always make it easy for you. You could, for design purposes, say, no, I want it super narrow. I want no padding. But the only warning I guess I'm emphasizing here is that then you'll have a hard time finding the little plus sign if you want. But anyway, let's click this plus sign. Now this is me starting a section from scratch. So here's going to ask me how wide do I want the section to be? Okay, I wanted full width. I wanted to go with full width of the screen. Great. Now I need to add a row, which is the blue ones, right? So I just hit add a row. And then the row is going to ask me, well, how many columns do you want in that row? I'm going to want 2 columns. Right, so I'm going to click 2 columns. See, now there's 2 pink boxes here. Now it brings a button that says, okay, we'll add an element to your column now. So I say, okay, here I want to add an image. And here on this column, I'm going to want to add first a nice big headline. And then you'll see a little plus sign here. That means add another element. Under that, I want a paragraph, right? And this image, see, I just click it and it brings me to the image settings, right? If I click this paragraph, it's going to take me to paragraph settings. I click this image again, go to the settings. You'll get familiar with this. Here's the spacing options, right? I'm going to click this button to pick an image. All right, let's go with this image right here. All right, so the image, mostly what you're going to be concerned about is the size of it, right? So you control that here. This is where I selected the image under image options. This is image. It'll have you put the URL in, or you can just click that and it'll pick one from your folder. You can upload a bunch of images at once here by just doing upload file. If you have questions, by the way, feel free to ask. Right.
Yeah, it's all straightforward. It's all good.
Okay. Yeah, see, I just selected 2 files. I can hit open. Right, and it'll upload them. Here you go. All right, there's one, there's the other. All right, I'm not gonna go with that one. I'm gonna just go back, keep the one I already put. So here's the width and the height. So this image is too big right now. Important thing about sections. I can control the width of the sections like this. Very nice feature. You see that?
It's dragging.
Yeah, I hit that little dot and I just drag it. Right.
Cool.
So that the image is by default gonna fill as much space as it can. That's one thing to be mindful of, especially also mobile view. We'll talk about mobile view in a second. So if I want pretty even sections, only warning here is when you're doing that, you kind of have to eyeball it. Unfortunately, it doesn't tell you percentages like 50-50 or anything like that. So if I think this image is too big and I do want the rows to be about the same width, I'm sorry, the columns to be about the same width, what I have to do is the following. I can go to the height and just say, okay, I want it to be 200 pixels tall, right? Oh, that's too small. I want it to be 400 pixels tall. Okay, that's better, right? And then as I'm designing, oh, here's a nice thing too, Darren. You can, another feature I haven't showed you is you'll notice on all the elements, pretty much all. Actually, yeah, and all the elements, all the purple, I'm sorry, all the orange ones, geez. There's this little cursor, this little icon here, where it lets me drag. Right, so I could drag stuff as well.
Cool.
See, and say I change my mind, I actually like this better here, like this. Right here, I'm gonna add some other thing.
When you add a video, yeah, is it like
Yeah,
can
let's
you
do a video.
upload your own and do a YouTube?
Yeah, well, here says video type.
Ah,
Yeah,
custom
either
embed.
YouTube, Vimeo, Wistia, or custom embed. Custom embed is gonna have you to put in the embed code of whatever.
What if you, because I have an intro video on my computer that's like nowhere on the web. I just want to like,
You can upload it to YouTube as unlisted so that
okay,
nobody can see it, and then put it in here.
okay, cool.
For now, let's see, let's grab this copy video URL. I'm gonna go back here, video URL. There, I just put that video there.
Sweet.
So then again, spacing, right? So if I'm editing this here, I might say, okay, well, I want more space between this headline and this paragraph because that's too close together. So design the aesthetics of your site, almost 80% of it is proper spacing. So you just want things to be spaced nicely and evenly, right? So first of all, I need more space above that. So I could either put space below this one or put space above this one. I usually get into the habit of putting space below, and I do a margin at the bottom. So here's the difference between margin and padding. Margin, as you can see, I'm editing the headline right now. Margin is the outside of the element, whereas padding is inside the element, right? And that's mostly it. Okay, and one more thing, backgrounds. You can add a background to the section. Here I could see it says background image URL, or I could select the color if I want a color to it.
Upload an image?
Absolutely. Yeah. You can, yeah, let's upload, let's just use an image here. Let me see, somebody used an image here. Okay. Oh, let's leave that there for now. It's a dental joke. A cool thing about background is, there you go, background image opacity. I could do a light fade. You see that? I could do a half fade, or I can do a heavy fade. You see, that's going to be a nice feature to make your things easier to read if you want a nice background. Because if
how do you upload an image? You just hit that image icon there?
yeah, same thing. It'll take you to the same folder. Another thing too, there's a way that the image can interact. So this is called full parallax. You see here, full center parallax image option, the background image. It's really cool. It's kind of a modern way to do it because it's really cool that the image kind of stays that way and you see different parts of it as you scroll. Or you can fix it by saying, okay, I just want the full width, and it'll kind of just stay that way. Right. So depending on the design you're going for, you just want to play with these to see if you want a parallax or if you want it to be fixed on that section. It could be full center, right? It'll stay like that. Right. The one thing about the opacity is, let me see here, because you can see the opacity kind of went white. Background color, background image. And there, I know there's a way of, oh, there you go. You see, if I go black, Now the opacity is much darker. You see that?
Yep.
So I could do a light fade. And now instead of going brighter towards white, is going kind of darker towards black. Because I selected a black color here. You could do that with any color. So you can make kind of red. Right. So another thing to make your stuff more legible, here you can see this text is almost illegible at this point. I can highlight the column. You see this purple element here, and I just clicked it. So now I'm on first column settings. And a nice thing I like to do is give the column itself a little background. So I might want to just do a black background like this. But I actually do want the image to be seen a little bit even through that. So whenever you see this little grid color thingy, it means transparent. That one's fully transparent. This one's somewhat transparent. You see, so now you could still kind of see the background through that. Another thing, in advanced border, let me turn this on for a moment. I'm going to do a full border, and I want to say border radius. I want it to be 10 pixels. Actually, let's do, what if I go 50? There, 50. And now it's got this little rounded corner with a border. However, if I change my mind about the border itself, I could just go no border, but it'll leave those rounded corners, you know? And now I could play around with this text and realize, okay, I actually like it better white. It's much easier to read. Same thing for this headline. Whoops, this is in bold, right? So depending on which font you're using, it gives you color for regular font, bold font, italic font, underlined font, right? And that's pretty much it. That's a whole web design crash course in a nutshell. There is a bit of a learning curve. You just kind of fiddle with it. You can't screw anything up. I mean, you just mess around with it. And if you are super dissatisfied with what you did, just exit and don't save. Okay, that's actually a last very important thing. Always hit save before you finish. If I want to preview how it's looking so far, just hit this preview button. Oh, since it's the first time I'm doing it, it's going to ask me for some SEO data. It's fine, just ignore it. And it's going to preview it for me. All right, so there's what we did right there. Boom. All right, so some sick web design right there. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm happy to work on here. Let's stop the recording. Do you want any questions before we stop?
That's all good. That's good. Thank you.
Oh, one thing before we stop. This button, very important here. Let me X this out here. Mobile. Okay, there's one last principle, which has to do with mobile. Mobile, obviously, is a very different type of screen. It's narrow, right? It's going to grab all your columns that are inside a row, and it's going to stack them. It's going to read pretty much how from left to right. So the left one's going to go on top of the right one, right? Just like we're seeing here with this video. That might mess around, might mess with some of your design if you have an intricate design, for example, like we had here, where there's alternating columns. You might not even run into this, but just for the record, what you're going to want to do if something is being very screwy is you might want to say to yourself, okay, you know what? This section right here looks kind of shitty on mobile. So I'm going to hit advanced here. And there's this visibility option. You see that? If it's in blue, it means it's on. If I get it off of blue and it goes into gray, it means it's off. So what that means now is that it won't show it. You see, it's gone. Same thing for every element. And that's the same thing for everything. You're always going to have this visibility option. So that was the last thing I wanted to tell you, that sometimes you might want to make things invisible in mobile or invisible in desktop. Some designers do something like having pretty much 20% of the site be common to both, but then 80% of it mobile, 80% of design visible only in mobile. And on the other side, 80% of a different design visible only in desktop. I've never gone that deep into it. I usually leave the same design pretty much across both desktop and mobile. And I just mess around with the padding. And if necessary, make something invisible and rebuild something on the mobile. I hope that wasn't too confusing. The recap of that is basically you hit advanced and see the visibility settings of anything.
Yeah. Well, I imagine
And
I'll
you can
do this stuff at the end.
well, you
So-
wanna kind of, yeah, you can do that. You can do that, or you can kind of check as you go. But yeah, you can do both ways because I don't think there's much of a problem to doing it that way, but you don't want to run into a situation where like here I can make this invisible, visible, right? That's really it. So any questions?
No, I mean that's a good starter. I think that'll get me going, and then if anything comes up, I can just
Yeah.
circle back.
Okay, I want to stop the recording. Let's see. Probably.